Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor back, and I am delighted about today's guest for you. He is an individual who absolutely practices what he preaches. In fact, he's joining us just after getting off his elliptical trainer after eating an incredibly nutrient-dense breakfast. He is the author of over 12 books and the founding director of the Yale University's Prevention Research Center. He's internationally recognized as one of the most influential individuals in disease prevention, as well as obesity treatment and prevention. His most recent book, of which there are, again, 11 others, is called Disease Proof: The Remarkable Truth About What Makes Us Well. And he is over at, again, Yale University. Dr. David Katz, welcome, brother. How are you?
Jonathan, great to be with you. Thanks so much. I feel good. How about you?
Well, I didn't just get off my elliptical, but I do have my dress shirt with sweatpants on. So,
yeah, well, that's the beauty of this. Nobody needs to know what's going on below the waist, right?
I love it. I love it. So, well, David, one of the reasons that I wanted to have you join us is we've been focusing a lot on the advancements that have been made in eating and exercise over the past 50 years. Just, like everything else in life. We don't do things the same way today we did 50 years ago for heart surgery or for cell phones or computers. So why would we for eating and exercise? And you are one of the pioneers in the field of redefining what we perceive as healthy. In fact, and let me make sure I get it right here, your NewVal scoring system is a perfect example of this. So can you really just take a step back and say what inspired you to create NewVal, and what else is going on in this space that requires us to take this new approach to nutrition?
All right. Well, I'm happy to do that. But the interesting thing, Jonathan, is when this story is told in its entirety, I think, in essence, we're going back to the future. And, I kind of like to invoke Michael Pollan, who wrote that 13,000-word treatise in the New York Times Magazine entitled Nutritionism. Essentially saying, you all right with the connection?
Absolutely.
We're good? Essentially pointing out that we lost our way when we got too new age about the fundamentals of healthy living, because they're the same as they ever were, right? I mean, our Paleolithic ancestors ate food direct from nature, got lots of physical activity, had no tobacco, went to sleep when it got dark. So in terms of the fundamentals of healthy living, it's sort of what we're natively adapted to. So it really is a case of back to the future. The trouble is the world is modern all around us, and we can't just tell people eat real food, because they have to be able to find it, they have to be able to do something with it. And so Pollan's advice, eat food not too much, mostly plants, is excellent. But you're standing in the cereal aisle of any supermarket in the country, you're looking at a whole bunch of boxes, and you're trying to figure out which box is more mostly plants than which other box, and well, forget about it, right? You just can't get there from here. So that's where NewVal comes in. I think in order to get back to simplicity, sometimes you need complex tools. And the tools should be easy to use, but they may be quite sophisticated. And a beautiful example of that is GPS, right? We could navigate by the stars or by points on the compass, but in the modern world, most of us are dealing with highways and roads and lots of turns, and you can't get there as the crow flies. You've got to get there, basically as the roads allow, and you need to know when to turn left and when to turn right. And GPS is pretty sophisticated. It's bouncing beams off of satellites and using trigonometry to sort that out for us. But in the end, the goal is a simple one. Here's how you get there from here. Well, NewVal is exactly the same. I do believe we should eat food, not too much, mostly plants, but I also live in the real world, and frankly, a lot of my own food comes in bags, boxes, bottles, jars, and cans. So the NewVal story begins back in 2003. I was privileged to be a member of a group of 15 academics invited to Washington, D.C. by then Secretary of Health Tommy Thompson. And at the time, the Department of Health and Human Services was establishing an obesity task force to help advise the FDA on steps it could take to combat the trends in obesity and diabetes. And what the Secretary did, inviting 15 of us, was to sit us around a conference table with the Commissioner of the FDA sitting next to him, the head of the NIH, the head of the CDC, and the Surgeon General, and said, I'm going to run this meeting, and here's how it's going to go down. I'm going to call on each of you characters one at a time, and you each get 1 3-minute turn to give us one good idea to help us fix what's wrong. Let's rock and roll. And you know, I mean, with all due credit to the secretary, he ran a beautiful meeting. That's how it went down. So my turn came. I said, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. And I'm going to use half of my 3-minute turn to tell you a story. My wife, Catherine, is French, born in North Africa, raised in southern France. You know, spoke barely a word of English when she was brought to the United States by her mother at age 14. Went to high school in Texas, learned English there, graduated, went on to UC Berkeley, graduated with a degree in psychology, and then went on to Princeton University, where she got a PhD in neuroscience. Jeez. You know, I mean, it's the cliche, right? I mean, when we say it's not rocket science, it's not neuroscience. Well, it was neuroscience of all things. Pretty smart lady, basically. We met, fell in love, got married. It's 5 kids later. You know, over the years, she learned everything I know about nutrition, and it was her. After the 3rd kid, she stopped doing neuroscience. Said, "I'll run the household. Thank you very much. That's a full-time job." Fantastic cook. I mean, learned cooking from her mother, French Mediterranean cuisine. But you know, I'm extremely fussy about nutrition standards, so it was basically her job to marry everything she knew about the culinary arts. I mean, real foodie. To my very fussy standards in nutrition. So you will not meet a more knowledgeable, motivated, savvy, experienced shopper in the country. I mean, she's fed 7 people all these years, married to a nutrition expert, PhD in neuroscience from Princeton, and even she doesn't know how to pick out the most nutritious bread in the supermarket, because bread A has the most fiber of all, but also the most sodium. Good trade-off or bad, can't tell. Bread B, less sodium, slightly less fiber, but it has added sugar in the form of high fructose corn syrup. But it's way down the ingredient list, so it's not much. But is it better or worse than bread A? Yep. Can't tell. Bread C doesn't have the added sugar. The fiber's pretty decent, and the sodium's not too bad. And it says 0 grams trans fat right on the front of the bag. But in the ingredient list, in parentheses where it says may contain one or more of the following, there's partially hydrogenated oil. Now, is it in there or not? You don't know, but is it better or worse than bread A or B? Nobody can tell. And bread D is a multigrain with amber waves of grain on the packaging, but has the least fiber of all. Is any of them actually a whole grain? You can't tell. So I said, Mr. Secretary, with all due respect, if a PhD in neuroscience from Princeton is not enough to pick out a loaf of bread, I think you guys set the bar a little too high. Here's what you ought to do. Convene a multidisciplinary panel of the top nutrition and public health experts in the land who've got nothing to sell except good ideas and good guidance. Give them all the support they need to take everything they know, pool it, along with the best available scientific evidence, and turn it into GPS for nutrition, a guidance system that anyone can understand and use at a glance, and where nobody can get lost. And let's be done with it. And put simple labels, ABC, 1, 2, 3, on every bag, box, bottle, jar, and can in the food supply, and let's be done with it. Well, you know, I waited about 2 years for the feds to do this, and they didn't. And my patience ran out, and I said, you know, the idea has merit. Let me see if I can get it done. So I called on my colleague, Walter Willett, chair of nutrition at Harvard, and he said yes. And I called on my colleague, David Jenkins, the inventor of the glycemic index, and he said yes. And I called on John Sefrin, the president of the American Cancer Society, and he said yes. And I called on Becky Reeves, past president of the American Dietetic Association, and Fran Kaufman, past president of the American Diabetes Association, and on it goes. Unbelievable, dream team, multidisciplinary, cardiovascular epidemiology, pediatric endocrinology, nutritional biochemistry. We worked together for 2 years with the bills being paid by Griffin Hospital, not-for-profit community hospital affiliated with Yale and home to my lab, the Yale Prevention Research Center. My staff supported. We built the Anki, the Overall Nutritional Quality Index algorithm, which incorporates not only about 30 different nutrient properties of foods, but weights every nutrient property based on epidemiology for the actual health effects it has. We didn't treat all nutrients as if they exert comparable health effects. Now, vitamin C is important, but in the modern diet, you know, we don't have a lot of scurvy, let's face it. So it's not as important as fiber, which is clearly a very limiting nutrient, that sort of thing. Omega-3 fat is rate limiting in the modern diet. So we weighted the nutrients accordingly. Sugar is negatively weighted. And the result, the Anki, is the only nutritional guidance system on the planet directly correlated with health outcomes. In a Harvard study, this was obviously long after the work was done. In a Harvard study of 100,000 people, Anki or NewVal scores, and obviously the system sees daylight as NewVal. NewVal scores were attached to all of the foods consumed by 100,000 people, and then a weighted average score for their diet was calculated, and health outcomes were tracked over a 20-year span. And the higher the average NewVal score of the foods these people ate, the lower their rate of cardiovascular disease, the lower their rate of diabetes, the lower their body mass index on average, and the lower the rate of premature death from any cause whatsoever. We can get to better diets and better health one well-informed choice at a time. And in addition to the research that we have, and there's more and more of it all the time, we have these incredibly compelling testimonials from the real world, Jonathan, where the rubber hits the road. So on the NewVal website, which is newval.com, there's a community section. And there are these unbelievable stories there. One I like best is a woman named Sally Galvin. She's a wife and mother of two, lives in the Midwest and shops in a Hy-Vee supermarket in, I think it's Kansas or Iowa, where they have NewVal. And the scores go on the price tag right in front of everything in the supermarket, right next to the price. Over 18 months, Sally Galvin lost 115 pounds. You know, that rivals bariatric surgery. But the beauty of it is, you know, obviously she didn't have to, go under general anesthesia or deal with a scalpel. But more importantly, she didn't spend extra money. She didn't have to pay for anything. And she took her family with her because by trading up her groceries, this was something she shared with her family. I mean, that's health. I mean, if there's anything in life we want to share with the people we love, it's health and vitality. Well, her husband lost weight because she improved the ingredients in all the food she prepared. Her kids lost weight and got healthy. I mean, it's beautiful. And we have innumerable stories like that. One of the many virtues of more nutritious food is that it fills us up on fewer calories. You know, when you and I debate, brother, it's about calories and what they mean. And, I think where we land basically is that both the quantity and the quality of calories matter. And, the argument I make is, yes, a calorie is a calorie, but the quality of foods we choose has a huge influence on the quantity of calories we consume. Nobody overeats apples and everybody overeats potato chips. So both matter. And one of the best ways to deal with quantity is to improve quality because, foods that are wholesome, they fill us up. The food industry taunted us. They said, bet you can't eat just one. NewVal puts the power back in your hands so you can answer. Want to bet? Because I know the best chips. I know the best bread. I know the best cereal. And I don't have to spend extra money for them. And I don't even have to make a choice in a totally different category. It's all well and good to tell people broccoli is good for them. That's true. And everybody should eat broccoli. I love broccoli. But when I want a chip to dip into salsa, I'm not interested in broccoli. And I don't think anybody else is either. But I am interested in the best possible chip. The most wholesome chip, whole grain, healthy oil, minimum sodium, and that's there for you. And the range in NewVal scores, and by the way the system works, 1 to 100, the higher the number, the more nutritious the food. Over 100,000 foods have been scored, and it's in over 1,700 supermarkets nationwide now, reaching about 30 million people. So I feel pretty good about that. Miles to go, but feel pretty good about it. And by the way, in the new book, Disease Proof, we provide hundreds, I think it's about 500 to 1,000 of the NewVal scores to show people how the system works. And even if you don't have it in your supermarket, how you can use the power of trading up for many, many benefits. Obviously general health benefits, but also that wonderful benefit of I want to get to thin and I don't want to go hungry. And if I can trade up the quality of my groceries, better chips, better pasta sauce, better salad dressing, better bread, better cereal, I can make all the choices I wanted to make, but by making better specific choices within those categories, I get all the benefits of more nutrient-dense foods, including I fill up on fewer calories. I can get to thin without going hungry. I can share the benefits with my whole family. That's a beautiful thing. That's the NewVal story in a nutshell.
Well, there is so much beauty in NewVal, Dr. Katz, and one of the things that I love about it is you talk about how, I'm a busy person, I have a family, I'm in the grocery store, I even if I have a PhD in neurobiology, that might not be enough. And by providing something like the NewVal score, we look at much more than the old simplifier, which was calories, right? Like the old simplifier was just look at the bread, and whichever has the least calories per serving is the one you should pick. But you and I know that is obviously false.
It doesn't work. Yeah. Well, and it's been many things, right? I mean, and that's what, Michael Pollan and others rant against. It was calories, it was fat, it was carbs, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's been many things. I guess now, who knows, it's sugar or fructose or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, the reality is that yes, the quantity of calories clearly matters because ultimately weight is about energy balance, and we do have epidemic obesity, and most of us are struggling to get to slim and need to be smarter to get there from here. That's really important. But we don't eat on a daily basis unless we're on a diet. We don't eat to fill a quota of calories. Nobody wants to live that way. We want to eat to get to satisfaction.
Absolutely.
We don't want to be in Mick Jagger's sinking boat where we can't get no satisfaction. We want satisfaction. And, I mean, the thing is, people are willing to put up with getting no satisfaction for about 6 weeks,
Exactly.
to look good in a bathing suit or a black dress or a business suit or whatever for a special occasion. But then everybody goes off the wagon. But I never go off the wagon. I weigh about what I weighed when I graduated high school. I'm a 50-year-old guy with 5 kids and a desk job. I exercise every day. I eat well, but I love good food. My wife is a spectacular cook. We're really foodies. I mean, a good dinner and good glass of wine. I love it. But we eat really wholesome foods. They fill us up on fewer calories. So the problem with the bread with the fewest calories is if it's not a really wholesome bread, and the same thing really with those 100-calorie packs. I was never a supporter of 100-calorie packs because here's the thing. You buy the lowest calorie bread or you buy the 100-calorie snack pack, but the food is junky.
Exactly.
You're going to be hungry again in 30 minutes. And so, okay, it's all well and good that it's a 100-calorie snack, but if you eat 17 of them,
Exactly.
what good did that do? As opposed to, eat walnuts or avocado or hummus or, all of the or nut butters or, all of the different foods, whole grains and all the foods that are nutrient dense. And in some cases, they're also energy dense. Almonds, walnuts, the avocado, really nutritious foods. They are packed with calories, but they're satiating calories. Yeah. You're getting high quality nutrition, you're getting full, you're staying full. We've actually published several papers using walnuts as an intervention, showing improvements in both diabetes and prediabetes. We have a trial ongoing right now where we're looking at the effect of eating walnuts every day on satiety and weight and appetite and total calories. Even though we're adding about 350 calories to people's diets every day in walnuts, we actually think the net effect of that will be to reduce calorie intake because it'll bump out less nutritious foods, create that lasting feeling of fullness, stabilize hormones like insulin, and result in net benefit. That low-calorie bread you buy, if it's not really nutritious, won't have any of those effects, just the opposite. So, yeah, you and I both know calories matter, but we also know that counting calories isn't the best way to deal with that.
And David, one of the things you just covered on, which I think is so profound, and when we take a step back, it seems obvious, but we need to be reminded of it, and that's the body isn't dumb. Like, the body is a miraculous vessel, and if you think you can trick the body into being satiated on 800 calories of no nutrition, like that's never going to work. Like, the body isn't just like, 800 calories and no essential amino acids or vitamins or minerals. Sounds good, I'm full. But that's what these people will lead us to believe, that you can trick your body in that way.
Right. Well, actually, quite the opposite. If you really muck around with things like that, it can be lethal. Back in the 1970s, we were starting. Excuse me, just a second. I've got dogs scratching at my door. Hang on.
No problem.
All right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Back in the 1970s, we had the advent of the very low-calorie liquid diets for the first time, and at that time, the focus was just reduce calories, trick the body, put it in starvation mode, everything will be okay. And what the docs who were administering this at the time didn't realize is, if you don't give the body, you mentioned essential amino acids, if you don't give the body the full panel of essential amino acids, it has to get them because we have to reconstitute cells and hormones every day. We need all. That's why they're called essential. They are essential for the construction processes of metabolism that play out every day. Well, the body has to get them, and if you don't provide them in food, the only place it has to go is scavenging in itself. And these very low-calorie liquid diets, 800 calories or lower in the 1970s, killed people because where they went to scavenge these proteins was any place they could get them, including heart muscle. And when you start leaching proteins from the heart, you create irritability there. That set up fatal dysrhythmias. People died of ventricular fibrillation. People who had no heart disease died. I was extremely concerned when I saw the advent of, I think it was the HCG diet, human chorionic gonadotrophin, because the argument here was 500 calories a day plus HCG injections. Now, I mean, talk about selling people the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, you go on a 500 calorie a day diet, you're going to lose weight. Duh. What do you need the HCG injections for, right? So it's kind of Dumbo's feather, right? I mean, I can't believe how gullible we're prepared to be when it comes to weight loss. But it wasn't so much that this was selling snake oil that bothered me. It was the fact that if people ate 500 calories a day, there was a good chance people were going to die. And I actually wound up being contacted by a couple of attorneys representing families where someone had died. So that's appalling. So, not only can we not trick the body, but, food is the fuel that runs the body. We shouldn't be trying to trick the body. And so, back to where our conversation began, really the goal here is not to get new age and funky and fancy. There is a reason why koala bears eat eucalyptus leaves. And that reason is that's what koala bears are adapted to eat. And there is a reason why giant pandas eat bamboo. Bamboo is extremely non-nutritious stuff. Nothing else on the planet can survive on bamboo, but it's the only food giant pandas can eat because they're adapted to it. Well, we're creatures too. And eating what we're adapted to eat is really important. Now, we don't have mammoth anymore, and we don't have all the plants that grew in the Stone Age, but the closest approximation is a wide variety of mostly plants. When we eat meats, lean meats, closer to nature, the better. But, again, we have to navigate to that simplicity through the complexity of a food supply that has something like 800,000 items in it. Because of NewVal, we've actually had the bird's eye view of if we scored everything in the food supply in the U.S., how many items would that be? And although you account for almost everything with 100,000, if you get down to all the local stuff, there's something like 800,000 food items in this country. But even in any given supermarket, there are about 50,000. You think about how many fruits or vegetables you could name, and then throw in meats, fish, poultry, seafood. And try to come up with 50,000 for crying out loud. So, we have this enormous complexity of foods in bags, boxes, bottles, jars, and cans, many of which glow in the dark. And we've got to be able to get to good nutrition through all of that. And that's why I think, in some sense, we need sophisticated new age tools like GPS to get back to simplicity. I just want to get where I want to go. I want to get to the mountains. I want to get to the ocean. But there are a lot of turns between here and there. I can't fly there as the crow would. I need GPS. Similarly, I want to get to healthy nutrition, and I know in the end it's simple. I know it's as close to nature as possible. Shorter the ingredient list, the better. But I've got to navigate through 50,000 choices in the supermarket, and frankly, I can't tell which is the best bread, and I can't tell which is the best pasta sauce. And even if I can tell, I don't want to spend 6 hours in the supermarket trying to figure it out. I just want to look at the label and know like that. And 1 to 100, the higher the number, the more nutritious the food, isn't about telling anybody what to do. One of the beauties of GPS is it tells you how to get where you want to go. It doesn't tell you where to go.
Yep.
NewVal is exactly the same. It doesn't tell you what to do. It just tells you what's what and gives you the power you ought to have so you're not being manipulated by all the marketing hype. I think one of the things people forget is that the front of every package is real estate owned by the company selling the product. It's advertisement. It's not intended to be informational. It's intended to be persuasion. And so, you can put lipstick on a pig. You can make junky food, but then highlight the fact that it has no cholesterol. I mean, you see labels like no cholesterol or no trans fat on items that couldn't possibly have cholesterol or trans fat. I mean, you see no trans fat on items where 90% of the calories come from added sugar. Well, then so what? And conversely, I actually took a picture and posted it on Facebook not too long ago. My wife took my son out for breakfast, and we're sort of caught up now we always get hung up on these one nutrient at a time fixations, and lately our attention has been focused on sugar and maybe fructose specifically. So there was this syrup on the table when they went out for breakfast, big banner ad on the front of the bottle, now with no high fructose corn syrup. But the first ingredient in this syrup was corn syrup, just wasn't high fructose corn syrup. And there was no maple in this maple. I mean, it was just a concoction of, sugar by 7 different names and artificial coloring. It was garbage.
Yeah.
But, that's what we get on the front is no high. And so if you think that's all I need to know it's good for me, you're going to be deceived.
Yes.
And somebody's going to laugh about that all the way to the bank. And NewVal is intended to fix that. The power belongs with you and with me and everybody else who's shopping for food and cares about their health and the health of their family. And NewVal levels the playing field.
Dr. Katz, certainly NewVal has been a great step in the right direction in terms of simplifying healthy eating for everyone. It shows a marked improvement to just judging by calories, just judging by fat, just judging by sugar. Where do you see the next advancement coming into play? Where is the future, or NewVal 2.0? Is there one planned?
Actually, NewVal 2.0, or again, for me, the focus is on the algorithm that powers NewVal, the Anki, the overall nutritional quality index algorithm. We just finished Anki 2.0, so NewVal scores will be refreshed, and they're fortified with the latest nutritional thinking, the best and most current research science, all of that. So yes, but I don't think that's in some ways that's a minor change. I mean, the scores will sort of be reshuffled, but it's still the same basic idea. It's providing guidance 1 to 100. The higher the number, the more nutritious the food. I think the next big advance, Jonathan, is changing our entire relationship with health and recognizing that, for example, let's talk for just a second about food stamps and the SNAP program, because right now, one of the things that has the whole Farm Bill bogged down in Congress is disagreement about whether or not to fund food stamps and help poor people get food. I'm a left-leaning public health type. It will surprise no one to hear that I support food stamps, but I'm also a public health pragmatist. And I pay taxes. And frankly, here's what's going on right now. We, the American taxpayer, send $100 billion a year to the federal authorities to underwrite SNAP, or food stamps, to help poor people choose poor food to get to poor health. We then spend a ton more money through Medicaid to pay the costs of that poor health. Who in this scenario wins? Everybody loses. The SNAP beneficiaries get food, but they get lousy food and they get sick. They're not winning. Taxpayers are basically setting fire to their money. We're not exactly winning, and the government runs out of money and they're losing too. What if instead we attached financial incentives to the NewVal system? So we've got 100,000 foods scored. Why don't we put those scores into categories? So bread, cereal, meats, dairy, and within categories put the scores in, say, quartiles. And then if you're a SNAP beneficiary and you're getting vouchers to buy food, if you buy a food in any given category in the bottom quartile of scores, $1 worth $1. If you buy a food in the next quartile up, though, $1 worth $1.25. In the third quartile, $1.50. In the top quartile, $2. Your spending power doubles when you buy the most nutritious foods. Why? Well, because if you buy the most nutritious foods and eat them consistently, you too, just like in that Harvard study, will have less heart disease, less diabetes, lower body mass index, less chronic disease overall, less likely to die prematurely. It costs a hell of a lot more to pay for coronary bypass and bariatric surgery than to incentivize a better pasta sauce, bread, cereal, cracker, or anything in the produce aisle. So we're penny wise and pound foolish. I think one of the next great advances in health promotion is a win-win scenario where we get off of that ridiculous cycle of spending very little money up front and an awful lot of money at the back end for bad outcomes, and incentivize the healthy option up front and save a ton of money at the back end. And so, here's what could happen. We now provide a SNAP system that not only helps people get food, but helps them get good food and rewards them for getting it. So SNAP beneficiaries get good food and good health. We do spend a little more money up front to help them get the better nutrition, but suddenly we've got a lot less surgery and a lot less pharmacotherapy to pay for it. We save a ton of money. And now everybody wins. The SNAP beneficiary wins, the taxpayer wins, the government wins. And if this works in the public sector, why not the private sector? So I envision big insurance companies and self-insured employers getting together with the executives of a supermarket chain and saying, you know what? Our clients shop in your grocery stores. we want to add something to your loyalty card. You offer NewVal. In fact, we'll pay for you to offer NewVal. And we'll also add an incentive to your loyalty card so when they swipe at the checkout counter, they get a discount every time they trade up their choices. Because frankly, you win big if you do this. You can now advertise that you not only offer GPS for nutrition in the form of NewVal, but there's a financial reward for using it and shopping in your store. You're going to increase your market share, so you win. Shoppers win because they're now getting a financial reward to make better choices and take their family to better health. But we win too because we'll spend less money on incentivizing healthy food than we're currently spending to pay for chronic disease. If our premiums stay fairly constant and our costs go down, our profit margins go up. Win, win, win. I see an enormously bright future for health promotion in win-win scenarios. Right now, I think we're squandering huge opportunities for just that sort of thing, and many other ideas. But NewVal and other innovations like it figure into these contexts where we think in terms of what are we doing now? What's a better way to do this? And how do we do this so nobody gets hurt? Everybody can win.
And Dr. Katz, even adding another win to that equation, I think you're spot on, and you touch on this in disease proof, is not only do you not get sick, but now you're healthy and able to function in the capacity that, if you believe in God, if you believe in a higher power, what you were put here to do. You're not in a mental fog. You're not sick. You're not tired. So what's the economic benefit of having millions more fully functioning healthy people in our country?
Incalculable. Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't matter what higher authority you answer to. All of us want that. I mean, we all want to be firing on all cylinders, clearly. And the work that I do at the Prevention Research Center and in my nonprofit Turn the Tide is all about putting empowering programming where the rubber hits the road. So we have a lot of programming for schools. And one of the issues there, when you're a health promotion guy and you want to put your programming into schools, one of the things you have to deal with is the fact that they're working hard in schools already. They had plenty to do before ever we came along. It's not so easy to teach little devils reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's really not. So, pedagogy is a high calling all by itself. So, I've been at this for 20 years and have had, conversations with school administrators all over the country. And the issue was, all right, you tell me what your issues are. Well, we've got to do well on standardized tests. And, they're the things that we are accountable for. And I don't have extra time, and I don't have extra money, and I don't have extra space, extra personnel. So, as the health promotion person wanting to add then to school programming, my job is to, okay, I hear you. So how about if the health promotion programming doesn't take extra time and doesn't take extra money and doesn't take extra personnel, but makes the kids better learners? I care about making them healthy. That's my mission. But if I can also make them better learners, then are you going to be okay with what I'm proposing? And, the answer tends to be, okay, we'll give it a try, but prove it. And we've been proving it. So, for example, we have a school-based physical activity program available for free, by the way, called ABC for Fitness, Activity Burst in the Classroom. And we conducted a controlled intervention in 1,000 kids and published this in the peer-reviewed journal. And what we found was significant improvement in key measures of fitness. So, it did what it was supposed to do. Stable performance on all standardized tests. So, it didn't get in the way of reading, writing, arithmetic at all. Significant improvement in the behavior of the kids in the classroom. Fewer kids got in trouble, fewer kids got sent to the principal, they were more attentive, they listened better. Significant reduction in medication use for all conditions, significant reduction in medication use for asthma, 33% reduction in medication use for ADHD, because frankly the proper remedy for rambunctiousness in children is recess, not Ritalin. and then, essentially what we're doing is we're promoting health and enabling the kids to do the thing they're in school to do better, learn. Well, we have similar programming for the work side as do many others. So exactly as you say, this isn't just about health because health is good. It's about health because when health is good, living is good. Whatever it is you're doing, you do better. If you're a kid in school, you learn better. If you're an adult in the workplace, you work better. And if it's the weekend and you're recreating, you recreate better because you feel better, you have more energy, you have more vitality. One of the things I have started talking to my patients about quite a lot, and all of these things are covered in Disease Proof, by the way. One of the beautiful things about the book is it's really comprehensive. It's me with the help of my co-author, Stacy Colino, telling the full story. We say we're not going to just, say one little bit of the story. We're really going to tell the whole story of what it takes to get to health. Here's the skill set. And then here's why it matters. So in the book, and when I talk to my patients, I say, health isn't the prize. The prize is living the way you want to live. But it's just about impossible to do that without health. So health buys you the prize. Yeah. And the prize is great. The prize is more life in years, and probably more years in life too, and something you can pay forward because, if you know how to be healthy, chances are it's going to affect the people in your life. In my case, I adore my wife. I love my kids. Gosh, there's nothing more important to me than them having vital, long, good lives. And I'm able to pay it forward. I have a skill set I share with them, and it just becomes part of who they are. Everybody can get there from here, but not by wishful thinking and not by magical thinking and not by false gimmicks, but with skill power. You need to learn a skill set, which is what Disease Proof is all about. What is the skill set I have that not only allows me to get to vitality and live the benefit of it every day, but to share it with the people I love? Boy, that's the prize. It's not health because health is important. I'm a doctor. I say you should be healthy. Yep. No, it's because healthy people have more fun. Yeah. If you're healthy, your life is better. That's the prize.
And it's as simple as eating and living in that high quality way enables you to then experience life in a high quality way. High quality leads to high quality, it sounds like.
It does, yeah, and actually it's important to be holistic about it. And one of the other issues that always affects my clinical work and that we address in Disease Proof is that there may be something else in the way. That the first step, for example, imagine you have sleep apnea or you have terrible insomnia for some other reason. It's all well and good to talk about eating well and being active, but you're so depleted, you're so exhausted, you can't do it. You can't begin the journey. Well, somebody like that, the first step actually has nothing to do with their feet or their forks and everything to do with their mattress and pillow. You've got to help them sleep better. Somebody in chronic pain, whatever the cause may be, osteoarthritis, they're not going to exercise because it hurts too much. So you have to address the pain somehow. Somebody who's totally stressed out for whatever reason, difficult relationship, maybe it's work, whatever it may be, that's going to be an obstacle that will prevent focusing on diet or physical activity. The short list of things that matter most to health as far as I'm concerned, I talk all the time about feet and forks and fingers. The master levers of medical destiny are feet, forks, and fingers. So physical activity, diet, and avoiding tobacco. But the super six would be feet, forks, fingers, sleep, stress, and love. So, if you're physically active, eat well, avoid tobacco, get enough sleep, and it's good quality, dissipate the stress that all of us encounter, and have loving relationships. Frankly, after that, who cares? Really, everything after that is vanishingly unimportant. But all of those things matter a heck of a lot. And even being lonely, just the love part of the equation. If you're lonely, that's going to sabotage your ability to focus on these other things because maybe you just won't care enough about how you eat or whether you're active. So we do need to think holistically. Each of these is interdependent, and it has to be customized. The first thing to do for you or for me or for someone else may be different. If my relationships are good and my stress is okay and I'm sleeping okay, then we can move right on to talk about my diet and physical activity. But somebody else, where sleep is terrible or they're in chronic pain, those may be the things you have to talk about first. And, again, I've been taking care of patients for 20 years, and you're only a good clinician if you're a good clinician for the single patient you're talking to right now. It's always N of one, right? So, one of the things that informed the writing of Disease Proof was that same notion that, we can map out the full skill set, but then we have to provide a way for anybody reading the book to say, okay, here's where I fit in, and here's the thing that I would need to focus on first. So we actually have that opportunity to kind of customize the approach built into the book. I think that's really important because there's always a way to get there from here, but it's not exactly the same way for everybody because the circumstances of our lives and the things that make daily existence challenging differ for us, and we have to be prepared to personalize the approach.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, Dr. David Katz, as always, thank you for joining us today. Always a beacon of hope and wonderful information.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. A great pleasure. Appreciate it.
Listeners and viewers, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Again, the brilliant man we've been speaking with is Dr. David L. Katz. He is the founding director of the Yale University Prevention and Research Center, also one of the pioneers of the NewVal score, and his most recent book, again, this is number 12 dozen, is Disease Proof, the remarkable truth about what makes us well. Check him out at David Katz, MD, and have a great week.